Sent me here
They
with
can
their
pull
hair
off
store
from here.
tickets.
Because it's magnetic.
I call to order the regular meeting of the Mount Pleasant City Commission, Monday, April 10th, 2023, 7 p.m. Please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to make a note real quick. I just saw Vice Mayor Alsager
Yeah.
hobbling down the steps, so she should be here momentarily.
Okay.
Timing her.
I saw her too.
The Mount Pleasant City Commission recognizes the Anishinaabe, whose ancestral lands the city stands upon today. We acknowledge the Saginaw Chippewa Indian tribe and recognize the three bands of Ojibwe, Saginaw, Black River, and Swan Creek, have resided on this land for over 200 years. Our acknowledgement of the full history of the tribe and our commitment to be good stewards of these ancestral lands are an expression of gratitude and appreciation to those ancestors who came before us. We give thanks to the generous care with which the Anishinaabe and those members of the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe of Michigan have given and continue to give to this land and our community. Clerk, please take the roll.
Commissioner Asman?
Here.
Commissioner Alsager's absent.
She's coming.
Yep. Commissioner Bush is absent. Commissioner Chapman?
Here.
Commissioner Ake?
Here.
Mayor Perschbacher?
Here.
And Commissioner Wingard?
Here.
We have a quorum.
We have a quorum, so we will continue. Tonight, we have an introduction and a swearing in of Mount Pleasant, the new Mount Pleasant Police Officer Cole McGregor.
Good evening, Commissioners. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Cole McGregor, who is the newest addition to the Mount Pleasant Police Department. Cole is both a graduate of the Delta Police Academy and Central Michigan University, where he earned his bachelor's degree in sociology with a minor in substance abuse disorders. Cole's previous employment experience includes serving as a deputy for the Saginaw County Sheriff's Office. And we at the Division of Public Safety are glad to have you, Cole. With that said, if you could raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Cole, do solemnly swear
I, Cole, do solemnly swear
that I will support, defend, and uphold
that I will support, defend, and uphold
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the laws of the state of Michigan,
the laws of the state of Michigan,
and the ordinance of the city of Mount Pleasant,
and the ordinance of the city of Mount Pleasant,
to the best of my abilities.
to the best of my abilities.
Congratulations, Cole.
Thank you, sir.
You are now a certified police officer for the city of Mount Pleasant.
All right. Well, thank you for the warm welcome. Obviously, I'm Cole. I am from Saginaw. Came up to Central Michigan for my bachelor's degree and fell in love with the city. I had no idea what I wanted to do when I came to Central. I thought I wanted to be a doctor. Really, what I just learned was I wanted to help people. Wasn't really sure where I was going to go. Figured best way to do that is go back home. But when I came to Central, I felt like this was going to be a new home for me, and I was very excited to come back. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity to serve the community out here. So, thank you very much.
You. All right. At this time, I will recognize that Vice Mayor Alsager has joined us. We are to the point where we have additions or deletions to the agenda. Does anybody have any additions or deletions? Manager Dissents.
Right. Thank you, Mayor. I do ask tonight that we actually cancel our public hearing slated for the ordinance to amend Chapter 110 General Licensing and consider approval of the same. And In taking a look at the materials that we have this evening, there is one outstanding issue within that ordinance that I want to review with staff and bring that back to the city commission. So rather than bring two ordinances forward, we thought it might be best just to take the whole ordinance back. We'll come back to the city commission with the full ordinance at a later date.
All right. So we're removing item 8, the public hearing. Is there any other additions or deletions? I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented with the removal of item 8.
I move.
Seconded.
All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. All right, we're moving on to our public input on agenda items. If you wish to come to the podium and speak, you will be asked to state your name and address, and will be given 5 minutes. This is on agenda items. If you are joining us by Zoom, you may use the raised hand feature or *9 if you're joining Zoom by phone. You'll be let into the meeting, asked for your name and your address, and you'll be given 5 minutes. I do not see any public in our center here at the chambers. Is there anyone on Zoom?
Nobody's on Zoom with me.
Okay. At this time, I'm going to close the public input, and we're going to move on to the receipt of petitions and communications. Manager Dissents.
Receipt of petitions and communications includes the monthly report on police-related citizen complaints received.
Okay. We're going to move on to consent items. Manager Dissents, can you please go through those?
Yes. Consent items this evening includes approval of the minutes from the regular meeting held March 27, 2023. Consider approval of a resolution authorizing an amendment to the standard lighting contract with Consumers Energy for removing streetlights at no cost to the city at Packard and Pickard for MDOT road reconstruction. Consider approval of a budget amendment for downtown visual enhancements for $17,500. Receive proposed 2024 through 2029 capital improvement plan and set a public hearing for May 22nd, 2023 on the same, and consider approval of payrolls and warrants.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to accept the consent items.
I'll move.
Seconded.
Okay, there is a motion and a second. All those in favor say yes.
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 All those opposed, no. Motion carries. We're no longer going to entertain a public hearing, so we're going to move on to new business. Presentation of the 2024 goals and objectives and consider adoption. Manager Dissents.
All right, so in February and March of this year, the City Commission, Senior Management Team, and the City Division or Department Directors all met in a series of meetings for the purpose of creating the 2024 goals and objectives. These 2024 goals and objectives are made to essentially feed into our budget process. They set up enhancements and improvements for the city to be conducted in 2024. From the results of those meetings, we do have a list of goals and objectives to present this evening. Those goals and objectives build upon our 2023 goals and objectives and carry a lot of those things forward. So I'll go over those right now. Goal 1, to maintain stable and financially responsible operations. In 2024, we plan to complete the required landfill remediation efforts at the city's landfill or former landfill, prepare a climate change preparedness plan, adopt best practices in asset management, look for ways to cut or find ways to compensate for services provided to non-city customers without payment. By this, we identify services provided to non-city taxpayers without payment and look for ways to reduce the impact on city taxpayers. And then lastly, monitor the city's tax base and develop interventions to stabilize. Goal number 2, continue positive and productive relationships with community partners, residents, and businesses. Create a workforce development program in partnership with Gratiot Isabella Technical Education Center, CMU, and Mid-Michigan. Renew the city's redevelopment ready community certification. Goal number 3, provide safe accommodations for pedestrians and bicyclists. We're looking to expand walkability in Mount Pleasant and identify grants and partners to expand the MMP GKB trail and increase signage on the trail. Goal number 4, create a community-friendly space in our downtown area. We'll do this by creating a community-friendly green space within the downtown area. We'll talk about more about that this evening. Goal number 5, provide a great park system and expand our sports, events, and recreation offerings. We'll do this by upgrading and adding universal access to Chippewater's park playground structure and creating recreational programs identified in the Recreation Needs Assessment to be conducted in 2023. Goal number 6, create a sense of place by promoting the Meet Here branding and working to become a cool destination. We'll do this by promoting that Mount Pleasant is centrally located. We'll work with community partners to support an event that brings more people to the city of Mount Pleasant. Continue to monitor the analytics on our communication channels and make sure our information stays fresh and relevant. Goal number 7, address the housing market demands in our community, including home ownership opportunities. We'll monitor and evaluate the performance of our pilot and NEZ programs in 2024. Those are the programs that we're developing in 2023. Goal number 8, maximize economic viability on Mission Street. We'll do this by engaging stakeholders in future development options for the corridor. We'll determine interest in continuing the DDA and TIFA districts beyond 2025. And then lastly, goal number 9, prepare the Mount Pleasant Center for future development opportunities. We'll consider long-term development options of the former Mount Center property. With that, does the City Commission have any questions?
Comments?
Commissioner Ekin.
I am really impressed by this, and I am happy with the comprehensiveness of it, and I want to say that, city manager and staff, you've done an amazing work here, but there's a little bit of a gap in here, and I offer it in good faith, okay? Under goal number 6, I think it's possible to include language there that says, maybe another bullet that talks about inclusion and diversity, because that's part of what you're doing with creating a sense of place and promoting the meet, here. You're branding this place, for me, it will be branding this place as a place that is receptive to everybody. Okay, so I think, we need to include a bullet there that addresses that. And I would suggest that if you desire or you want to take a look at a language from a city that has something like that, look at the city of Kalamazoo. They have something, language that addresses that. I am not talking about employment or work, although that pertains to it. I am talking about bringing diverse, encouraging diverse population, people to live here, regardless of their ethnicity, whether they're green, red, brown, white, yellow, their, social orientation, be it sexual or religious, or, I think we want to be a diverse place, because I think that's also what helps make our communities healthy. We want that diversity in demographics, but eventually that would also feed into diversity in terms of the businesses, and the types of organizations we have in the community. That's where I am speaking from, and I offer it with kindness. Okay, so I think we could do that, because I don't see us addressing any of that anywhere here. Okay. Other than that, I'm just simply, I am proud of what we're doing. I do know that we have some of that already, but nothing here says that we are doing that. We belong to, you and I serve on a number of committees that address those issues, but not necessarily the city, but with CMU, and I think it's important to do that, to say we are already doing some of this, we can do better. Yeah?
Yeah.
Do I make sense at
Yeah,
all?
oh, absolutely, yes, yeah,
Okay,
very good
okay,
feedback. Yeah.
okay.
A couple of ways we could achieve that and be up to the city commission for how you want to do that. I could take this draft back and we could bring it back at the next city commission meeting with that addition, if that's what the city commission wants to see. Or you could just more or less make the motion to include a statement like that, and the details of that language could be worked out afterwards, either way.
Where are my colleagues on this? I would, my default position is to take it back and look at models from other cities so that you can at least, work on the language that you want to include. But, I will also defer to my colleagues, voices.
I would support statements just acknowledging and encouraging diversity and inclusion as like a goal of the city. I would agree. I mean, I think back to the conversation, it was our work session with CMU about a international grocery store. I think, that's a very specific example, but we don't get to those very specific examples without having the broader goal of like, this is what we want to try to do and strive towards. So whether we have it rewritten either out of session or while we're here in session, I leave that kind of to the group to decide, but I would support that.
I would also support the inclusion, and I would trust the city workers to look at models and come up with a good statement.
I would agree with that. Any other thoughts, questions, comments? All right, thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Now, my understanding it is going to become the Michelle Sponseller Show.
Yeah, I'll start my hour-and-a-half presentation. Just kidding, just kidding, a joke, a joke.
While she pulls that up, if I can, I'll just go ahead and tee up the next item of business, if that's okay.
Yes.
And that is the consider adoption of the 2023 Downtown Strategic Plan. Our Downtown Development Director, Michelle Sponseller, has provided a well-made, comprehensive strategic plan. After a presentation, the City Commission is asked to consider adoption of the plan. Director Sponseller will be able to answer any questions that you may have. And with that, and killing a little time, we have the presentation up, and I'm going to turn it over to Director Sponseller.
Good timing, good timing. Good evening, Madam Mayor and Commissioners. Tonight, I'm pleased to be presenting an overview of the Downtown Mount Pleasant Strategic Plan, a comprehensive document outlining the strategic objectives and initiatives aimed at revitalizing, enhancing, and sustaining the economic and social vitality of downtown Mount Pleasant. This plan will serve as a guide for stakeholders to collaborate, invest, and undertake projects that will collectively contribute to the growth and development of downtown. 20 years ago, the Downtown Mount Pleasant Blueprint was adopted, and last year the City Commission requested an update to that strategic plan. The importance of this new downtown strategic plan is crucial for the city's growth, economic vitality, and quality of life. It encourages new investment, establishes a clear framework for enhancing downtown's appeal and ensuring long-term success, and fosters a sense of community. The plan is closely linked to the 2050 Master Plan and Capital Improvement Plan, providing clear year-by-year tactics synchronized with the CIP to guarantee a unified approach to improving infrastructure and resources. Through strategic prioritization of projects and effective coordination between plans, we can optimize the impact of investments despite limited resources. This plan aims to provide a clear vision with actionable steps to create a vibrant, thriving downtown that meets the needs of residents, businesses, and visitors. It focuses on several key areas, including economic development, infrastructure, public spaces, and community engagement. You can see here our vision. In collaboration with residents, visitors, students, business, and property owners as essential stakeholders, we will utilize innovative urban planning, strategic investments to enhance the quality of life for all members of our community, foster economic growth, and celebrate the unique heritage and identity of Mount Pleasant. Several economic trends and challenges are shaping the development of downtown, including a need for diverse, high-paying job opportunities, decline in CMU enrollment, increased competition from online retailers, inability to meet new construction demands, poorly maintained and/or absentee landlords, demand for affordable housing options, aging roads, sidewalks, and public facilities, and competition from neighboring towns and cities. We also offer numerous opportunities that can be harnessed for the benefit of our community and local economy. They include having a historic district and architectural charm, green spaces and parks, vibrant cultural and art scene, walkability and pedestrian-friendly infrastructure, a strong sense of community, the attraction for new businesses to diversify our economy, improved transportation options for accessibility, and skilled workforce through partnerships and programs. There are 7 strategic initiatives broken into action plans in the Downtown Strategic Plan. They include placemaking and public space improvements, business development and support, transportation and accessibility enhancements, community engagement and collaboration, redevelopment and new construction, housing option expansion, and property standards improvement. Initiative number 1, placemaking and public space improvements. Included is developing and implementing capital improvement plans and creating and enhancing public spaces. Number 2, business development and support, focusing on business attraction programs and methods, and implementing a business information and support hub. 3, transportation and accessibility enhancements, improving multimodal transportation infrastructure and management options, implementing accessibility improvements and traffic calming improvements. Community engagement and collaboration, partnering with key downtown and community stakeholders, collaborating with the Recreation Department and external organizations to foster community events and initiatives. Redevelopment and new construction, identifying strategic redevelopment and new construction locations and assisting with the needs of those developers. Housing option expansion, encouraging development of diverse housing options in and around downtown, and supporting affordable and inclusive housing initiatives. And last, property standards improvement, developing those property standards and providing property standard resources where we can. The implementation timeline and monitoring evaluation methods outlined in the plan ensure a systematic approach to executing each strategic initiative, allowing for ongoing assessment, adaptation, and improvements. Regular progress reports, stakeholder engagement, and data-driven decision-making will be crucial in maintaining momentum and achieving the desired outcomes. This plan provides a comprehensive and well-structured roadmap for the revitalization and enhancement of downtown over the next 5 years. By focusing on these 7 key initiatives, the plan sets the stage for a vibrant, accessible, and thriving downtown that caters to the diverse needs of our citizens, our businesses, and our visitors. Questions?
Are there any questions?
Yeah, I'll start us off.
You're good. Jump in there.
Question for you. One of the things that you talked about was the term was multimodal transportation. So talking about like new transportation options. I mean, I imagine you think about this every time you hear a parking complaint or something.
Oh, I do. Yes, I dream of it.
Can you talk to us about kind of like talking about the plan into the future transportation options for downtown?
Multimodal transportation is everything from, we look at recently e-scooters. We do ride sharing, Uber, Lyft. There's taxi companies. We're now going to have a pedal trolley coming to town. That's pretty fantastic. I'm excited about that. Along with not simply walkability, but it's those who have accessibility issues. So we want to make sure, for example, that at our corners, we don't just have ramps for them. They're the proper ramps. And I'm going to look over at Jason, like, I make sure I'm going to get this, the technology quite right, where you'll notice that they have raised circles on them. Those for visual impairment. So the sound of the sidewalk changes. So making sure that we're looking at all of the needs of all of our citizens, from someone who is walking downtown, a mom with a stroller, if you're riding a bike, or you are taking it in your typical sense, a vehicle, and you're coming downtown. All of those need to be looked at. It's one big system, if you will.
Gotcha. Other question I had, I believe I saw somewhere in there, it was discussion about like lowering curbs to allow more ADA access, I believe.
Yeah, one of the things that we are looking at for parking lot 3, Town Center, Main and Broadway, if in the grant, one of the things that we're looking at is to go curbless. What that does is the curb can be a barrier if you have a mobility issue. Taking away the curb, a lot of that goes away. Now, it doesn't mean all of them will meet the criteria for ADA, perhaps, but for those who have some slight mobility issues, it can certainly get us a little bit closer to it.
Gotcha. Easiest and hardest items, in your opinion? Like, first thing, first thing, like this one's gonna be a breeze.
Easiest. They all have their own challenges. I'm not sure that I would say one is easier than another. The good thing is, I guess, on the easy scales, we already have so many wonderful partnerships. We don't have to recreate the wheel. We're already meeting with the Chamber of Commerce and the Convention and Visitors Bureau, Central Michigan University, Mid-Michigan College. We're already meeting with those, so you don't have to start over. Challenge, I would say the biggest one is probably capital improvement. There are finite dollars and we have to stretch those as far as we can go. And so sometimes we have to make difficult decisions.
Last question for me, I promise. What would you say, so this was plan was asked for back in 2022 to replace the plan that was established in 2003. Thank you. What would you say biggest change from one plan to the other as far
Internet.
as internet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 2003 really, it barely references the internet, quite frankly. Well, it was 20 some years ago now when it was being written. So, I mean, I'm not really surprised. I don't believe anyone could have had a crystal ball and seen, Amazon, for example, and things like that 20 years ago. It was just it was a little more than an idea, but not a whole lot more. So I would say that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
What needs to be changed to make it easier for people to want to invest in downtown? Because people don't want to. How come?
I'm not sure I have the answer for that. I'd like to know the answer. If that means meeting with some folks who want to make an investment and they find that there are barriers, I'd be interested to know what those barriers are, and what the strangle points are. Are there things that, whether it's reality or it's perception, that we as staff can help with? I don't know if I can clearly answer it without knowing the exact situation.
I don't know that there's a situation. I just know that people aren't doing it, right?
Well,
I mean, for the most part.
I think it's a combination of raising the bar of expectation through property standards. And I think for some folks, it's also putting them in contact perhaps with the right resources. They might have an idea, but they lack the funding. So partnering with, whether that's a grant or an organization or a financial institution that can help them put all that pieces together. It could be as simple as that, where someone has had a building for perhaps generations. They inherited it, for example. It may not have been their idea, but now it's an asset that they have to maintain. And not everyone is cut out to take care of an asset of that size, quite frankly.
Sure.
Commissioner Eke?
Again, as I said to Manager DeSantis, I am impressed. Okay, you have done amazing work here. And yeah, we needed to have an update. So I am glad that you did this. Part of my concern has been asked in the question from my colleague here. But I also want to address, because I know that when we were talking about this during the work session, I always worry about, accessibility issue, mobility issue. And in this case, especially with the strategic plan that deals with transportation and accessibility enhancements, sidewalks. I walk, and I know a lot of people. Yeah, so sidewalks, but not necessarily for me. I probably could figure out what to do and how to skip over the ice. But as we talk about accessibility and people with mobility concerns, I don't know what the current plan is regarding how to manage ice at those, those corner, the edges of sidewalks. Yeah, because I watched somebody the other day almost, when it was icy, it's like, oh my God, I even slipped, right? I know that some of them have those grids, like yellow marked grids and all that. But sometimes, for some reason, it was icy. Does this, plan put that into consideration, especially for people who have mobility issues, parking, and in terms of the parking spaces? Are you going to consider that? And I ask this because we've been talking about how to de-ice the city and how to de-ice, our community. So this becomes a concern given, climate conditions. I don't know what will happen a year or two from now. Are there, how much consideration are you going to, how much have you considered some of these issues?
I've definitely considered it. However, the reason why it is not in the plan is because it is already existing on the books for property owners to take care of the sidewalk in front of their building. And so that would actually mean those crosswalks as well. When it's around parking lots, that's on us, the city side. So if you see that around parking lots, public parking lots, call me, call the city manager, who will then call me, and so we'll get those taken care of. But that's not something that we have to reinvent. There's already something on the books. It could mean better messaging, making sure that people know the expectation. There's also a trade-off that more salt is not necessarily the best, because if you add too much salt and creates a melting point, and let's say it dips down into 17 below, then you have a sheet of ice. So just
Well, I ask because of that, not necessarily that issue, but the issue of clearing sidewalk came up several weeks or maybe months ago, when we're talking about the ordinance that says property owners, businesses have to do this, and residential properties are not doing that. Okay, I know this is downtown, and I'm asking that because I witnessed something like that. So, and for me at that point, I wasn't sure whether it was the city's responsibility or somebody else's responsibility, hence my question.
yes.
So you're probably correct, messaging, how do we make sure that happens?
Set the expectation early, I believe. And so when that weather changes, because we always start to, the last few years, Mother Nature has really surprised us. Typically, we were not moving any serious amounts of snow until just around Christmas time. The last couple of years were 6 weeks in advance, and it's now rainy and icy as opposed to snow. So it's,
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you. Just asking.
Any other questions or comments? Right, thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
And we're going to consider setting a public hearing for April 24th, 2023 on the Public Gathering Space Initiative Grant Proposal. Manager DeSenza.
Do we want to consider adoption of the downtown strategic master plan?
Yeah, I will move for
okay.
adoption.
I have a question then, if we're gonna do that.
Okay.
Can somebody just explain to me the primary funding is it from taxpaying payers, like for all the improvements and?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Primarily would come out of the
And is
general
that
fund. We
budgeted
also.
for?
We would, if adopting this plan, we'd have to fold this into our regular budgetary process, whatever comes out annually. One of the things that we set our sights on for this plan, though, was understanding, look, we're very limited with funds. We've got the general fund. We also have an economic initiatives fund as well, too, but that's quite limited. So understanding that we had limited funds, I think we developed a plan that requires probably more in-house type of footwork from direct response seller than anything.
I heard her mention that, and that's great. I was just curious if it was feasible.
Yes, we think so, yes.
I have just a minor question, thanks to my colleague here. I made notes for myself in terms of funding, actually, are there grants that you have considered, foundation grants, that, you know, especially, I mean, the Michigan Municipality League has all those competitive grants that hopefully will place us on the map somewhere. You know, we went to, you know, was it last fall or was it winter? It was last fall at Muskegon, right? You know, yeah. So, hey, can we look into those? If you need help writing grants, call me. Do not include that there. You know, but no, seriously, right? You know, if we don't have enough money budgeted, and for us, that would be a challenge to do that, because here we have this grant that challenges us to transform our downtown. So why not look at that? You know, is there a possibility of looking at that?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Wingard?
Yeah, this is, I think this is one of the first strategic plans that I'll be voting on as a commissioner, so a bit for my own making sure my understanding's there. We're adopting, voting to adopt this plan, it doesn't necessitate that, like, we have the funding already in place for these items. These are the goals that we're working towards, so on a year-to-year basis, we'll still need to approve that, like, this priority is going to get funded.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? I'll entertain a motion to consider the adoption of the 2023 Downtown Strategic Plan.
I move.
I'll second.
All those in favor say yes.
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 All those opposed, no. Motion carries. And now we're going to consider setting a public hearing. Sorry, I had flipped my paper over before.
Understood.
Go for it.
Yep. So Downtown Development Director Sponsler has been working on a grant application that would provide over $1.5 million in CDBG money to enhance Parking Lot 3, or what we're calling the Town Center project. We do have a concept that has been included in your city commission packets, and actually Director Sponsler has some handouts as well too, it looks like. So I think she's ready to take us through this project. I think it's a wonderful project, and so I'll turn it over to Director Sponsler.
Yes, as we were joking earlier, it is the Michelle Show. Yep.
Yes, it is.
So what you have before you are two options for Town Center. The project, the top page is the one that we are moving forward with for the grant. The reason I wanted you to have both of them is to understand that if we don't get the grant, the second page is what the project will move forward and look at. Excuse me. So, as the city manager said, it is looking at $1.5 million and a little bit more. The grant includes universally accessible green space. So on that top page, you'll notice that there is a pathway that is specifically designed and sized for wheelchair accessibility. Those concrete pads for seating, again, using the standard with ADA, so it meets all of those requirements. Curbless is what we were looking at, so it not only meets that accessibility level, but takes it to universally accessible is the phrasing. Also gives the space a better long-term use. So if you have an event that's just using the green space, great, but if you need more real estate, we then can close the parking lot and it can expand into that space as well. It also includes electrical enhancements, because right now that electrical in Town Center is about 30 years old and shows its age from time to time. Includes 3 electrical vehicle charging stations and public bathrooms. So without the grant, there would not be public bathrooms. So I want to be clear on that. Doesn't mean that we won't look for other funding options, but there are not as many as what there were at the state level, but we try and uncover any that is out there. So with MEDC, this is the Public Gathering Spaces Initiatives Grant. why they come up with some interesting names. This is the second and final year for this particular grant because the Community Development Block Grant funding, which comes through the federal level, is moving all over to MISTA. So MEDC will not have those funds next year. So yes, it is going to be due April 28th. And by the end of summer, they're saying that we'll know who has the awards. So happy to answer any questions on it you may have.
What's the name of the grant again? Public Gathering what?
Public Gathering Spaces Initiative.
Okay.
So when I come before you in 2 weeks, however, you will have a much better rendering than what you see here. This is the basic framework that we're working off of. The next one you will have, I'm going to call it the pretty picture that will show it in use, and you'll have people, on the, so you'll be able to have a much better feel for it. We're in the process of that, though.
Just to clarify, the first picture I'm looking at is with the grants. Second picture is without the grant. You mentioned
Correct.
Restrooms are contingent upon the grant.
Correct.
They are on both pages.
Oh, I will make sure to change
And
that
the
then.
north side and everything by the roundabout. Yeah, the yellow block.
Thank you for catching that.
Yeah, no worries.
Kind of an important distinction.
Is this the question period? Can I ask?
Yes.
Will this generate revenue in any way, shape, or form?
Not at this point. We haven't looked at that as an option. It's something that we could consider looking at as far as like a rental cost, if someone were to rent the space is what you're, or,
Yeah, it just looks like it. I don't know. You could have like a. You remember how they would have the downtown concerts and so
Yes.
forth in the
Mhm.
evenings?
Yeah.
During the summer, I forgot what Max.
the
used to have
Max
like
Emily
a-
Summer Concert Series.
Yeah.
It just looks like something could. maybe-
As the commission, that is certainly something that you could decide to do. Up to this point, we do not charge for special events, the applications or the use of space downtown. So it would be a departure, but if we wanted to look at it, we could certainly do that.
Just curious.
What does it look like right now? I mean, so I'm looking at this, I don't know what the difference is between this and,
Well, so if you were to use the top image as sort of a guide,
okay.
so the green
Oh, I see, so the
space-
street's taken out.
Correct.
Gotcha, that's what I
Correct.
was confused
So
about.
imagine taking that corner pie-shaped piece and pulling it all back and growing it larger as
Gotcha.
you move back.
Okay,
Correct.
Commissioner,
It's about 7 times the amount of green spaces currently there.
gotcha.
It just knows where it says eliminated Older Street. I just want to. I'm not trying to be mean, but
Thank you, Brian.
you're welcome.
Uh,
Thought that would help. Sorry.
Right now in the town center area, there is a, I believe it is, I apologize, I can't remember if it's Korean or Vietnam Memorial there.
Korean Memorial?
Yep, Korean War Memorial.
Yep, whether
can you talk
we
about
move either option, that is going to have to be moved on a short-term basis. And it's something that I'm discussing with the Parks and Public Space Director. Perhaps there's a better location than looking out at a parking lot, maybe a better, more serene area. But that is something that we would engage with our local veterans groups. That is not something that we're going to do in a vacuum. We would have conversations with them.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I know walking by it every day. It's fairly well visited. It seems like to me. I know that there's a lot of different materials that are left there frequently. So it does seem like there's people who
Yes.
it is important to them.
It
there, yeah.
is, and I would also point out that that is not accessible.
This is also true. Thank you.
Yes. Any other questions or comments?
Well, I'm curious about this because I see, as I'm reading on the paper here, that it's gonna create 7 new parking spaces. So now I just know that I'm gonna get some phone calls.
Of course you
We're
will.
gonna put a lot of money in to create 7 new parking spaces. I know there's gonna be green space, but people are gonna look at the facts
Right.
and then not care about the green space, right? And so I think that's important to address that.
Absolutely. It is a conversation that we had. When I say there was at least 12 variations of this plan, there's probably more. And one of the things that we did every single time was the balance of how many parking spaces are we adding or are we losing spaces? If we were to just reconstruct the lot as is, we don't change anything about the parameters of that space, we would actually have to lose spaces because they are not up to current regulation size.
Sure.
So I think it's 3 spaces if I remember. So we tried to do the very best we could.
Sure, no, I understand that. I just know.
Yep, I know.
Because
Oh,
I
trust
see
me.
it says
There are a
7
lot
spaces.
of, I've had a lot of people ask me questions about it, like, well, how many spaces are we going to lose? I was like, actually, we can gain.
Has there been any
There is.
pushback for getting rid of that road?
No, not that it's been said to me. Let me put
Okay.
it, no,
Okay.
no.
Yes.
Okay, so logistical question really. So in the second design, you take out the restrooms.
Correct. Due to the cost. That is a reality that unless we have the grant, it's just not feasible to put those in with what is currently in our capital improvement plan. I would love to tell you otherwise, but it is more than $500,000 to build bathrooms. And they are not anything elaborate. They are similar to what we have in our parks.
Mhm. So let's say hypothetically, you don't get, I shouldn't say that, but in the absence of those bathrooms, what are you suggesting? What would be the option for people?
Oh, for a public restroom? When we have events here at City Hall, for example, we can have the building open, but typically that's not an option. We would have to use portable toilets is really the option. That when the craft beer festival, for example, is downtown, they have a whole long line of portable toilets. Yes.
How many bathrooms is that?
I believe that there is 3 for the men's and 3 for women's.
Just the banks.
That's a lot of
Just for that.
portable bathrooms.
Yeah, yes, I know.
Blows my mind, it's $500,000. Me and Brian will build them for $250. I mean, that blows my mind that it costs so much just to build the bathrooms.
I'm in.
Yeah, so the portable bathrooms,
Wow.
you'd have them there in perpetuity, or is it just indefinitely?
I'm sorry, say that, what was that?
So if, let's say hypothetically, you use portable bathrooms, they will have to be there indefinitely.
Well, they would come and go depending on what the event was. So for
Okay.
example, there was one for the farmers market last year because the farmers needed one. Or the vendors, I should say. But there would be some, depending on what's happening. If there's not an event, there wouldn't be one there. But otherwise, yeah, there could be as low as 1, or they could be 10 if you had a very large event.
Okay.
Last question for me, I think. Flow of traffic within the area. I know, so unless I'm completely misunderstanding of the traffic, of the current flow of traffic in there, one of the exits or entrances into the parking lot is kind of like you can go either way. One of the entrances on that goes towards the roundabout. Oh my gosh, I'm terrible with maps. There's a one way. You can only go one way into it.
Correct.
Plans for this lot and everything, or like is it kind of like you can come and go either way, or is there like a single you're in the lot, you have to go clockwise or counterclockwise?
You would go, exactly, there would be a traffic pattern to it, if that's what you're asking.
Yes. Too many words for it, but
It's
yes,
okay.
thank you
It's all
for
right.
divining meaning.
And one of the things that Stacy Tuari, our engineer, looked at, she was instrumental in putting this together because she kept her sanity at the number of options that we had and changes, were to having not only the right number of openings, but in the right location, because right now they're a little oddly placed. So we were able to close in one area and put in 2 that better meet needs, because right now they get sort of stacked up with traffic coming in and out, so.
Any other questions, comments?
I have one more question, I'm sorry. So the other difference between these two is whatever's going on with the circle, right? And not just the bathrooms, so those pads and whatever is that circle, so that's, I mean, so the grant's 101.5 million. So that's gotta be $1 million?
No.
Where's it?
So the 1.5 includes the original plan, which is 710,000,
Sure,
the 553,000 for the bathrooms, and then the other portion it's for that concrete specifically, I believe that was around $30,000.
okay.
Right.
But this one's gonna be done without the grant, that's 1.5 million, right? Or do I have that wrong?
No, the $1.5 million is the grant.
Okay, yeah.
Without the grant is $710,890, I believe, is it?
Oh, I see what you're saying. So you're saying that, I got you, I understand. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments?
Just
Yes,
a
sorry.
point on that budget. No, the grant, you were $1.5 million on the grant project is what you were
Correct.
saying for the grant.
Correct.
All right. And then the other one was, I believe it was 1.1 because there were 700,000 and change for just the resurfacing on parking lot 3. If we wanted to expand the green space, close off Mosier, do that expansion, that required an extra 400,000. So we're about 1.1 on that.
So what I was understanding was that we're gonna do the second page, and if we get the grant, then we'll have $1.5 million to do the rest. So you're gonna use that grant to then fund that $710,000. Okay. Makes a lot more sense.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you, Michelle. I will entertain a motion to set a public hearing.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. All right, we have set a public hearing for April 24th. We're going to move on to consider approval to continue with the 2022 hybrid approach for Broadway Central for 2023 season. Manager Jacinth, you want to introduce that while Michelle walks right back up here?
Absolutely. Last year, the city staff worked closely with the downtown business owners and folks that attended and utilized Broadway Central, and it means to provide the public amenities within our downtown and provide minimal obstruction to business activities and to parking. The hybrid concept, as it's been called now at this point, did effectively that. The City Commission is asked to consider approving the same concept for 2023, while also allowing staff to work with interested businesses and considering alternative locations where this also might be beneficial. And for further questions, I do want to turn it over to Director Sponseller.
Here, I thought I was done the evening, and I forgot this last one, apparently. All right. Yes, we are recommending the hybrid approach as we did last year. Setup would be exactly the same as far as the fencing, the tables, the chairs, I would say the floor covering, the AstroTurf, if you will, it would be exactly like last year.
Okay. Can we ask
Commissioner
questions?
Ake? Yes.
So
questions.
what type of feedback did you get from last year's implementation?
Well, I had a variety of feedback. There were some people who were very happy with the hybrid approach. Thank you for, meeting in the middle. There were some who still don't like any outdoor seating. There are some who would like to close the street completely. So it's really runs the gamut, as you might imagine. So I would say by and large, in the middle with the hybrid approach, it was a nice compromise that it wasn't a challenge to get there, but it took some, give and take with the business owners and the residents who wanted that outdoor seating. So that's why we recommended doing the same this year.
Okay, thank you.
Two things I've heard were a majority of people did not like it. I mean, to people who shared with me, the businesses weren't thrilled by no parking. And so I don't know. I've heard, it doesn't affect me one way or another, right? But I know a lot of the businesses, I've heard that from the few business owners downtown, that it really did not help their business, that people would leave because there was, I mean, again, the same with parking, right? There's nowhere to park, right? And so now we've taken away parking spaces. And so, again, it doesn't affect me, but I'm here to represent people. And so it's, and the other thing I've heard is people say, oh, I love the idea of it. I may have never went down there, but I love the idea of it, right? And so, well, the idea of it doesn't make it useful, right? Unless it's useful. And so, I just don't, I don't know, I've heard too much.
That's why I went with the hybrid approach.
I understand.
Because in true compromise fashion, where there are people at both
Sure.
ends of that spectrum, but primarily they're found in the middle, so.
Well, the problem is though, either way, parking spaces are gone, right? Even with the hybrid or with the roads shut down. And so the problem remains the same, even though people can drive on the road. The problem was that they couldn't park there. And so, especially when we hear so much, people complain about parking. I mean, you know, you said every time you go to a meeting, everybody's talking about parking. So if that's what the problem keeps being, I just don't know how we can shut down the parking spaces.
Well, that is one of the reasons, though, that we left some parking on the street, that we didn't take all of it. There was that, there is outdoor seating, and it includes parking along the street as well. As opposed to taking, leaving the street open and taking all of the parking
Sure.
spaces. 12 spaces. Or, no, 11, I'm sorry, 11.
Commissioner Ake.
I hear my colleague, you know, advocating for people who want parking. We've been talking about parking, you know, there's parking problem downtown. On the other hand, somebody might say, you know what, if you look carefully, you'd find parking downtown. You're just simply not looking farther away enough. Okay, but there are also people who want to sit, you know, outside. So I do think that we have to be willing to meet somewhere in the middle, you know? They all live in the community. The businesses are in the community. The people who come there and sit outside also engage in businesses. They support these same businesses. It's not as if they were just sitting there just for sitting there. So I think that it is important for us, if we're going to create this open, welcoming, friendly downtown space, to understand that we're going to have to make some sacrifices. It's not going to happen just like that. And, you know, reconsidering what parking might look like, you know, in terms of the summer and other times, would, you know, has to be part of the conversation as we, you know, move forward with this reshaping of our downtown. It's a conundrum, but I don't know that it is enough to say, well, people want to sit outside, and here is a way to address the needs. I have colleagues who say, absolutely, we don't want anything there. We just, you know, we just want the whole place taken up. And I have to say to them, no, you know, there are businesses there that don't necessarily want some of that. So let's be willing to accommodate. I think that's the word. Yeah, you know, meet somewhere in the middle. It's a conversation that we have to have, and I think that it may also be a conversation that we will probably never stop having, because this will come up again and again and again. So thank you for considering that.
I think it will continue to come up until we have our Broadway central space. And then we will have space for people to be sitting outside and enjoying without having to take up parking spaces.
And we'll have other complaints.
Yes.
I'd be right.
Human nature.
Yeah, 7 extra. I think, well, in part of this is, I know we've invested heavily in that park across the street and that park right there, right? We've put a lot of money into that, to where if people want to sit outside, we've made available spaces for people to sit outside. And again, I'm one of those people that think it's kind of a cool concept, but I just know I hear too much to say, even people who like it, there's a lot of people who've shared that they like it, but they don't use it, right? So I think if we're investing heavily in the parks that are right down the road, it's.
The key there is they are down the road and they're not in downtown.
Well,
So-
but parks are made for congregation, right, to sit. That's why there's picnic benches. Parking spots are made to park in, right?
But people want to sit next to the businesses where they go to buy coffee. You're not going to say to them, so buy your coffee and go to Island Park and go sit out there. They want to sit there. There are a lot of cities like that. We have to be cognizant of the fact that this society is changing. The whole world is changing. And people are thinking differently about spaces. And we've got to think differently about spaces. It's not all about cars downtown.
Yeah, I would definitely, I come in here with the perspective of I would be in favor of shutting down the road again. I'm a resident who moved and stayed into the, don't get me wrong. I know we're going to come in here and we're going to compromise, and I'm fully supportive of the hybrid plan. But what I would speak in favor of the downtown closure. You have local restaurants that are fixtures of the downtown area who it got them through the pandemic, and it is a highlight for them. As a resident who moved to the downtown area seeking that, I was a little disappointed when the city commission I wasn't a part of yet voted to not do so. But I think as far as like the downtown area, we talk about traffic control, about speed in the downtown area. Well, Broadway is the east-west running road. When there's a break in the middle, I can imagine I won't hear engines gunning it at the stop sign through my window every night and everything. People have to slow down. People have to go to other places, to other parking lots, and expose themselves to other businesses that are out there. There's a lot more businesses in the downtown area than just concentrated in that section. So I think forcing people to experience, like going to other spaces, I think it helps broaden like where people are at in the downtown area, so they don't have to be right in that little section. We can like have businesses that are scattered, a bit more scattered around. Not only that, I think last year it was that we had our social district put in place. I mean, this area in the hybrid approach or otherwise would be a great congregate area for people who have drinks, want to go to a quiet area, move away from the bar or anything. I am more than willing to compromise, but I talked with a business owner this afternoon who is very much like, yeah, no, shut it down. Like, just close it down. People will walk around. And so I think there definitely is still that strong debate there, which, as Amy pointed out, we're going to be having for a while. Question for the conversation then, do we know how Max and Emily's, for example, has a built-in patio into the street area? How is that decision made? Because, I mean, you have restaurants that have had to build their own patios, if that's something that they're interested in potentially.
So that was part of the streetscape project that was done 32 years ago.
32 years ago.
So I can't answer exactly whose idea that was, but that's when it was put into place.
Gotcha, okay.
Right.
They've been a fixture for a while now, yeah.
I would just like to remind you that we originally voted to not let the street be closed, and there was an overwhelming majority of people said no. And then Mary brought it up the next meeting and we came up with the compromise of the hybrid. It was, the majority of the business owners were actually here and very opposed to it. Just to give you a background, you're probably aware of that.
No, the background, I appreciate the background. I wasn't on the commission at the time, so I didn't get to see those conversations, so I do appreciate that.
I remember the four of us voted no, and then it got brought up at the next meeting and revisited, and then this plan was put in place. I agree there's a lot of good points on both sides, but you know, the hybrid seems to benefit everybody. I mean, if you could take a vote of the business that were directly affected on Broadway, I have a feeling that it would not, just based on the history and the experiences that I had here, that it would not.
Are you having memories of phone calls as soon as I started talking?
Yeah, flashbacks. I guess.
Flashbacks,
But,
gotcha. Yeah, no,
there was, a lot of the business owners had come and were opposed to it, and there was a very select few that were for the road being closed.
Gotcha.
Manager DeSenza.
Thank you. Maybe Director Spencer can help my memory on this as well, too, because I remember as part of our conversation going into last year's Broadway Central design, we had 3 businesses we were talking to that wanted to add patios out there. And so the idea was, okay, when we added that up, I think the net loss in spaces between the Broadway Central concept and what would have been done with those particular patio additions, which they would have been able to do by ordinance, was only like 3 or 4 spaces, the difference between that. So we do believe if we didn't go forward with the Broadway Central this year, it's very likely those businesses would still want to come forward and do their own patios. And in those discussions, though, we decided, look, we want to be a part of this as the community. You know, it's one thing, I know we talked about this last year during that consideration. The seating out there is nice, but you know, you would feel a little out of place to maybe sit in Ponder's area without Ponder's permission necessarily, or without grabbing some coffee or something like that. And I encourage everyone out there to grab some Ponder coffee and sit in those areas because they're fantastic. Little plug for one of our businesses, but you know, what if you want to grab a Jimmy John's sandwich, right? There's no place to sit, and I can't sit Max and Emily's or anything like that. And then here's another thing. Max and Emily's, one of the cornerstone businesses in our downtown. Gosh, that outside parking, if you're not there right at 12 noon, you're not getting one of those spots. Just not going to happen. It's just so busy. They take up all the other areas in Broadway Central for the most part with a lot of their lunch business. So yeah, the staff talked about this year, and we really felt like we wanted to be a part of that kind of activity again this year and give a public space for folks to be able to enjoy all of our downtown businesses at all hours of the day.
Any further discussion? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
I would like to entertain a motion to consider approval of continue with the 2022 hybrid approach for Broadway Central.
I move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. Motion carries. Now we move on to announcements on city-related issues and new business. Anyone on the commission or staff wish to make an announcement? Commissioner Eckert.
I have an announcement. There'll be a student display of posters on genocide. It's not, it's not a happy topic, but if you're interested in seeing, thinking about, or talking about or understanding genocide, there'll be posters on the 3rd floor of the library, so the west wall of the library. And, these are posters from students' work looking at genocide. One talks about Caesar's Gaelic wars as constituting genocide, or the Spanish reign of terror as genocidal. Japanese, occupation of Korea, and of course the Holocaust. Native American, there are about 3 dealing with Native American experiences, the boarding school experience, education, and also talking about blood quantum laws. So if you're just interested in that, I think it's important, to look back at history, hopefully, to understand how these things happened, and hopefully, let's work towards not having new genocides. This is at CMU. MSU? No.
Any other announcements?
Let's see, the Central Cat Coalition is going to be having a trap neuter return program on April 21st. They're going to be targeting one of the cat colonies in town. You can volunteer and learn more about getting involved at centralcatcoalition.org. I believe they had a volunteer meeting this evening via Zoom, so you'll probably want to email them if you're interested in joining in and helping out with that.
Okay. Any other announcements?
Yeah, the Care Store that we approved their raffle license a few weeks ago. She made sure to give me some tickets today, so they're doing a raffle to help fund the Care Store. So tickets are $20, and I think the top prize is like $1,000.
Any other announcements?
How can we buy those tickets?
Right here.
General public?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think you might be able to go online too. Carestore.org.
Okay. Without any other announcements, we're going to move on to public comment on agenda and non-agenda items. If you are in the public and are in the room and would like to speak on the agenda or non-agenda items, you will be asked to come to the podium, state your name and address, and you'll be given 5 minutes. If you're joining the meeting by Zoom, you can use the raised hand feature or *9 to be recognized. You'll be let into the meeting and you'll be asked for your name and address and be given 5 minutes. I see no one out in the public today. Is there anyone on Zoom with you?
Yes, I'm going to bring in Paul Loria.
All right, thank you.
I just wanted to say that I'm thinking of you guys from the Sunshine State in Florida. I wanted to congratulate Cole McGregor on the Mount Pleasant police officer swearing in, and tell Assistant Chief Bliss he did a fantastic job. You guys are all welcome. If you want to jump in a car or in a plane, come on down, Sarasota.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Director Loria.
Told us before he went, right?
Is there anyone else?
No other raised hand.
All right, thank you. At this time, I'm going to close the public comment and I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move.
Second?
Seconded.
All those in favor say yes?
Yes.
All those opposed, no. We are adjourned at 8:12.